We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Christian. Now, Christian took our advice and purchased a pair of SVS PB1000 subwoofers. He says he realizes now that all he was really hearing with his previous home theater in the box subwoofer was distortion. Rumble and noise masquerading as bass is how he phrased that. So anyways, he previously did the subwoofer crawl and discovered the best place for a subwoofer was right in the opening between his living room and his kitchen. Now that he has a second subwoofer, he's placed it along the right side wall, so the two subwoofers are on opposing sides of his living room. But of course, there's still the opening to the kitchen on his left and the open stairway going upstairs on his right. So as I always say, opposing walls within your theater do not, unless your theater is enclosed, is not really, the bass doesn't care where you sit. So wipe out set the subwoofer output level to -9, and yet manually setting it to -3 didn't seem to make that much of a difference. So how should he go about setting up his pair of subwoofers for optimal results? This is the problem.
It's a tricky situation. It comes up frequently. So.
It does. And the big problem here is that there is no opposing corners or opposing walls or whatever that you can put this in because of...
Yeah, not conveniently.
not a convenient way to do that. So it really ends up being sort of a trial and error thing, to be honest with you. There's really no other way to do it. And I know I wish I had a better solution for you, but if you hired a custom installer, they're not going to set up, I mean, maybe they would, but I've never heard of them setting up a bunch of microphones and a bunch of stuff all over and taking a bunch of measurements and saying, there, those are the two spots. Because it's really hard to model these rooms.
Yeah, I mean, if you're setting up JBL synthesis with Arcos, maybe, but are you paying some money? So
that's a little bit pricey on the options.
Well above cost of dual PB1000.
Yeah, a little bit higher than that, like by an order of magnitude or two.
Oh,
so, yeah, there is really no way to do this really super well. So the thing to do is you have to determine where one subwoofer would be good, which is in between, in this opening that you cannot put it in. If let's just say you had the perfect ability to place them anywhere you wanted to. Well, you could go opposing corners or opposing walls within the entire space if that were physically possible, but with a stairway, it really kind of isn't. So what I would do is this. I would turn off all of the room correction that I have. All right. I would run I would level match my subwoofers in whatever location I have them in, and then I would run a sweep through it and listen to it at my listening position. Okay, listen to how it sounds. Then I hate to do this, but that's really kind of the only way I can think of to do it. I would move them because you probably have. If you have 4 spaces to put these things in your room, I would be surprised. I think you have 3 spaces or less. So there's either you've already got them where you can put them, or there's maybe 1 or 2 additional spaces. I would then start switching the subwoofers around. Switching one to one of the other locations and listen to it again. Get yourself an idea of how it sounds in the second one, and then if there's a third one, get your idea. Then you'll have to kind of mix and match. This is just to get a rough guesstimate of how even the bass is just by placement alone.
And actually, the thing you're looking for most would be an absence of really bad dips.
Right.
In that bass sweep. So you're playing a bass sweep, it's going on repeat over and over and over again. Just playing a bass sweep, no equalization, nothing. The phase knob set to 0 on both of these subwoofers, and all you're concerning yourself right now is placement, and it's trial and error. And in Christian's case, one of the reasons he has one of his subwoofers kind of in this position halfway between his living room and kitchen is because when he had one subwoofer, he took our advice, did a subwoofer crawl, and that turned out to be the best spot for one sub. Well, he left the sub there, but then added a second one. He's like, well, I'll try to put it across the room from the first one. But it's important to understand that as soon as you have dual subs, the subwoofer crawl is out the window. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Now you have two sources of bass working in unison, and what the first subwoofer did all by itself is completely immaterial. Don't even worry. So, you know what? If this spot between your living room and kitchen is actually a little bit inconvenient for you, you don't have to keep a sub there just because that was a good spot for a single subwoofer.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have to keep it there. Now you got dual subs. You can start playing with any combination of two positions. And all you're trying to find is a combination that gives you no huge significant dips. If you get some peaks, that's okay. We can deal with that later. You're trying to avoid huge significant dips right now.
So just kind of glancing at his room, right? He's
Uh-huh.
got the right side where he's got that other second subwoofer. That whole wall looks pretty clear. So he's got a couple options there. I put it the wrong way. Then at the front of the room, he doesn't seem to have any options. The back of the room, he might be able to get one. That's still the left side there. I mean, the right side there, sorry. Maybe if you cheat his couch over a little bit, he could put one next to his couch, between his couch
Between his couch and his
his
computer
desk.
setup?
Yeah. He could put one there. And then he's got the spot where he's got one right now. I think those are his three options.
Kind of, yeah. That's what it looks like.
Four options, right? So he's got that. He's got four basic options here. So he's already tried out two of them.
Yep.
So I would take the sub that you have on the right wall, stick it in that right corner, back corner, and see how that sounds.
Yeah.
And then I would take the sub that's against the next to the bookcase, put that next to while this one is in the right corner, put that one on the other side of the couch.
Yeah.
And then I would take the one that's in the back right corner and move it back forward again. And those are your four listening things.
Yeah,
that
your
you have to do.
permutations, yeah.
And then you can see which one has the least offensive bass, basically.
And
smaller amount
he
of dips.
basically just has two seats to concern yourself with. Listen in both seats. You know, if
Might as
one
well.
of them is your primary seat that you care about more, then weight that more. But listen in both seats because ideally, if you have multiple subwoofers, you can get one where that is more uniform. Again, we're just looking for no gigantic dips right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then you can go and start running wipeout and stuff like that. But at the same time, you can then, with one of the subs, start playing with the phase.
That's right. Leave one of them at 0, but with the other one, again, just trial and error.
Doesn't
play
matter
with the
which one.
phase.
Whichever
Yeah,
one
it doesn't
seems
matter
to
which
do it.
one. And again, all we're looking for now that we've found the best physical positions for the two of them when we're playing with the phase, we're just trying to get it uniform between your seating positions. Again, we don't really care if there are some humps, as long as it's the same humps in both seats that you have. And we're trying to avoid any big dips, because big dips can't be fixed with EQ. But if you have a couple of humps, but they're the same in both seats, not a big deal. You can fix that with EQ.
So he said the wipeout set the subwoofer output to -9, and then he adjusted it up to -3, which means he boosted it 6 dB, and it didn't seem to make that much of a difference. That should tell you something right there. You're sitting the big old null between these two things.
It could also just be the difference from different frequencies, right?
Yeah, it
he's
could
listening
be,
to
yeah.
some content, and some content it's louder, some content it isn't, because it depends. It's frequency dependent, right?
Yes. So that is how we do this. Basically.
Yeah, it's a time-intensive process, Christian, but there's not really. I mean, there is a better way, which is having a multi-microphone automated setup like Arcos. But if you have $50,000 lying around, great. You probably have more money than time. But yeah, I'm guessing you don't have $50,000 lying around just to do that setup. So you'll have to sacrifice time instead of money.
You have more time than money now. And then after you finish the phase thing, then you run wipeout again. So you want to get your subs as good sounding or as even sounding as possible with as few dips as possible. Then you run wipeout. Okay, so that's important. All right. Secondly and lastly, he's hearing some sort of rumble or vibration that makes some of the bass sound artificially long. He isn't quite sure how to describe it, but it happened with his previous home theater in a box subwoofer too. He's wondering what it is and what he might be able to do to fix it. Rumble
That's
or
a room
vibration.
resonance.
That's yeah. So get a different room.
So the problem with this, Christian, is that there are multiple possible culprits for this. It can be the very walls of your place physically shaking, and they are to some degree. Everybody's room, the walls are physically shaking to some degree, but in some places you'll actually audibly hear that, some places you won't. It could be the bookcase sitting next to that subwoofer that is physically shaking and resonating at specific given frequencies. When you hear this overlong note that seems to take way too long to decay, it just keeps ringing even though the sound and the soundtrack stopped. Something in your room is ringing.
Yeah.
Something in your room is physically continuing to vibrate even though the subwoofers stopped moving. Tracking that down can be a pain because it's hard to localize bass. Our human ears aren't very good at it. About all you can do is, one thing you can do is play the bass sweep and you will find where that sound happens. So if you play a marked bass sweep so that you have a decent idea of what range of frequencies cause this excess ringing, then you can create a test tone that just focuses on that one, small range of frequencies. You play that over and over, and you'll have to walk around your entire space, because who knows, the ringing could be coming from upstairs, right? Like that's it's genuinely, it's a possibility. You have to walk around. You will be able to find where it is loudest, and there it is. That's what's causing it. But it's hard to do because you can't really use triangulation with your human ears to pinpoint where it's coming from. You kind of just got to find, by trial and error again, the spot where it's loudest.
It's probably something pretty low and only happens during those deep bass things, and hopefully it's not happening too often. Last night, I was watching something with my son. I can't even tell you what it was. I think it was like the opening of Aliens or something like that, and it's something in my room, like the entire room shook. Like I could hear the glass in the windows. I could hear the, like the panes vibrating. I could hear I think maybe the blinds were vibrating as well. I mean, it was like just like everything shook, and I was like, well, that was pretty. That's not the way it's supposed to sound, but that was still pretty awesome. I'm kind of okay with that.
In my theater, I can flex a wall.
Same thing, right?
So, what am I going to do about that? Nothing. That's what I'm going to do about that.
One thing it might be it might be localizable for him, because he was hearing it with his home theater in a box subwoofer, which means it's a fairly high note. So it very well could be, it is something that is fixable. What might it be? I found out in my house in Jacksonville, I've mentioned this podcast a number of times before, there was a light fixture in like the hallway that was resonating with certain frequencies, and it would rattle. It was a high, and the rattle was very, higher pitched, because it was a sympathetic frequency or whatever it was, and it was rattling like crazy. And I just had to kind of dampen that, secure it a little bit better, and it was fine. So you may be able to find this, but what Rob said, by going by the frequencies and figuring it out, that's pretty much the only way to do it. I'm gonna have to walk around and find
Chris
it.
has got a lot of trial and error ahead of him.
Yeah, you're gonna be playing bass sweeps a lot, dude.
Yep.
Get used to it.
You're gonna be like me, man, listening to bass sweeps and test tones more than actual content.
Be Like Rob? Is that the name of the podcast? I think it's Be Like Rob.
All right.
It might be Like Rob. Just sad advice to give, maybe, or happy, depending on how you feel about bass sweeps. I like bass sweeps. I don't know, I like them as much as Rob does. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.